Hey guys, welcome back to another Architecture Real Talk. So today's topic is going to be all about the reality of a client. So the question comes to me all the way from a person who's working in Gensler right now. And he pretty much have side projects that are coming in later in the day where he's accepting every client's work. And he's asking like, hey, since you're a small enough channel, can you address this issue? Now, I have mentioned in the past that I have about 7 years of experience owning my own firm, and I have worked for about 5 years in an architectural firm, anywhere from a small to a larger firm. So when it comes to accepting every type of work is where I was like, let me go ahead and address this issue. So for those who don't know, architecture is primarily a service-based business. Much like a barbershop, we're selling a service, not a product. So in this particular case, client is anyone who is looking for a building, anyone who is looking forward to doing a joint venture with someone, and this is who you answer to. This is your boss. Now, for those who are an architectural student right now, you never will have a boss. You're technically designing on your own whim, and that's why you can go out of your way to be creative, right? And one of the things that you will hear from really new or green architects, meaning they just came out of college, is opportunistic architecture. Hey, you should look at the budget's constraints as a way to exploit different materials, explore architecture, and that is all great. But there's certain things that I want you to want to talk about that are beyond just the budgetary constraints. So let's go ahead and start with the most important thing that I think that a client and an architectural relationship needs to have is a separate pre-design or an importance of a pre-design or a programming phase. This could be something that you charge a flat fee for. If you get large enough, this could be something that is thrown in. It shouldn't be pro bono. It should be a flat fee. And we'll talk about how this would work. This is pretty much you feeling out what the client wants, right? This is you establishing some lines of communication, and this also gives you a way to practice the communication skills with your future client. So if they're responding to your email, if they are pretty much doing their due diligence, whatever is required for them, and at the same time, you're able to program and pretty much have a direction of where the project should be going when it comes to schematic design, and you are full-blown in an AIA contract, and you are in a full-blown relationship. Before any of that happens, try to do a programming phase. Now, one of the things that I also say is you will already start feeling out what the client is driven towards. If the client is driven towards finding new ideas, this is going to be a portfolio-worthy project, and you want to pursue that, then by all means, go ahead and go for it. But you will find that there are certain clients that are just absolutely cheap. They will pretty much, if you are trying to find opportunities to save them money and you're going out of your way, they will still try to cut your budget below what it already is to squeeze every little penny out of it. And by more powers to the client, because they're actually looking into their investment. They're just trying to cut as much as they can. And if you have a client that goes out of their way to not even fulfill your ideas, then it's like one of the red flags that you want to avoid this client. Establishing communication, again, I would stress this enough. If a client is like missing deadlines, if the client is not responding to your email, if you yourself are getting a hard time getting a hold of the client before the project even starts, I would just tell you that's just a huge red flag, and you should actually like have this as one of those things where you should not give a second chance to the client. Next thing I want to put emphasis on is a client that already has a preconceived idea of what the design should look like, or he already has done a previous project and he's trying to mimic that on a different site. Now, if you do not really care about reputation and this is solely for the sake of money, and you say, I don't really care about the portfolio on this one, I'm just going to dish out what the client wants, that's perfectly fine. But there are certain times you have clients that will take a preconceived idea and they will continuously tweak it. And that's another red flag for me. If you have a client that has a tendency to have continuous revision, I was at a point where we had 13 different change orders on a project that specifically never went under a huge climactic event that was pretty much an unforeseen event. It was just simply the client going, hey, can we upgrade this? Can we pull this wall back? And all of those, if you're having 13 or 14 revisions, that's not a repeat client. This is like one of those red flags. Again, we will talk about how to mitigate some of these problems, right? As we've already been discussing them. Another thing you will have is established very early on, and this should be also part of your contract, is a point of contact or a person who you would be directly communicating to. Majority of the time, anything that becomes large, sometimes it's even residential, well, you have like a man behind the curtain who's pretty much making more decisions than the other, or hey, he felt this way, she felt that way. I told my friend about this project, and guess what? They said, can we think about this as an idea? All of those will lead to longer deadlines. It will pretty much prolong the project longer than it's supposed to, and you'll see substantial reduction in your fee because you're not outputting as quickly as you need to cover your overhead, right? And then lastly, you will have, I would say, these contortionists, or they're just pretty much exploiting a new architect. Another thing you want to take into account is if you ever come across a new client that has pretty much, you've heard of bad reputation, or he himself is avoiding paying you, or you are not getting your due diligence in pay, or he just simply outright not pay or just keep delaying that process, is very, very likely he's not going to pay you. So one of the ways you can mitigate this, again, we talked about this, the importance of establishing communication lines. And you want to test those communication lines by having a separate pre-design or a programming phase. That is aside from schematic design, design development, all of those things that I've talked about, the process of architecture being produced. You want to take the clients and put them out and just put them in a flat fee zone where you are getting a, let's say, 40% upfront, another 20% in the middle, and the rest of the 40% at the back end. So you are literally looking at it in terms of like a 2 months or a 1.5 month delivery line to just pretty much start the project. And in that, if you do not feel the client, if there's communication problems, if there are point of contact problems, all of those various steps means this client should be avoided. With that said, continue to inspire and create. Until next time. Follow for more content.